Have you ever accidentally cut yourself with a knife because you thought that it wasn't sharp and it turned out that it was? If that's you, smash the like button and leave a comment down below letting me know which knife bit you. Welcome back to another episode of Grail or Garbage, guys. I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And today we are going to systematically rank and review this Arcane Plexus, designed by Israel Bacchus of Arcane Designs and the late great Elijah Isham. Now, I've had this knife in my possession for the last couple of weeks, and diligently, day by day, I've been asking and answering the important questions. How's the ergos? Do the materials feel premium? Is there any sharp edges? So on and so forth. And now that I have, the only question left to answer is it a Grail? Or is it garbage? All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time that we talk about the Arcane Plexus. Now, in case you're new to how Grail or Garbage works, here's how it's done. There are 5 categories in total. 5. Those categories are materials, ergonomics, fidget factor, the lock, and of course, fit and finish. Each category is worth a max of 10 points. And if you haven't seen it yet, here's our leaderboard. By the time we're done ranking each category, we'll add up all of the points and then place it on our public leaderboard, which also, by the way, if you want the most up-to-date version, it's linked in the description below. So we're going to start off with materials. And as always, when we talk about materials, it's going to be weighed against the cost. How much does it cost? Well, that's kind of a tough one in this case. You know, since we're talking about materials and we weigh it against the cost, I have to mention that this knife is discontinued. We're lucky that we even got one run because unfortunately Elijah Isham did pass away earlier this year, which means that ultimately we get one run. So this was a limited production. The cost, unfortunately, is not much of a factor in this case because it's going to be hard to get one of these. There might be a few still floating around out there, and if I can find a website that still has any of these available, I'll make sure to link it below as well. That being said, when it was brand new, it cost around $400. What does $400 get you? Well, it gets you a whole bunch of titanium. So you get titanium handle scale, titanium inserts, titanium backspacer, and milled titanium pocket clip with, of course, a captive one-sided pivot. The blade is made out of M390, and if you're interested in the overall length and blade length and weight, here it is. So with all of that being said, it doesn't really get much better than this. Here's the hard part when ranking really expensive knives. And, you know, I'm going to say it's really expensive, even though I know there's knives out there that cost like, you know, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 because, you know, most of us don't have knives like that. And if you do, let me know in the comment section down below. What expensive, super expensive knife do you have in your collection? What's your most expensive knife? There we go. Regardless, M390, lots and lots of titanium. And that means that I have to give this a solid 9 out of 10 as far as materials are concerned. Keep in mind, cost is not playing a factor at this point because it's discontinued. You can't get this knife anymore. 9 out of 10 for materials. Moving on, the next category is ergonomics. How does it feel in the hand? Is it comfortable? Are there any hot spots? Does it make sense? You know, at first glance, you might look at these inserts and think to yourself, well, you know, like that might not be the most comfortable thing in the world, but they're actually very well machined and the edges have been knocked down. There is a tiny choil here at the front, but that it really is a sharpening choil, even though it looks like, you know, maybe if you had little tiny fingers, you might be able to fit one in there. But I'm going to tell you guys right now, don't do that. That's not a finger choil and I would not suggest it. You do, however, get this nice swell in the handle, which does make it a very comfortable grip. And because these inserts have been knocked down and well machined and scalloped out, even though they're angular, they kind of disappear in your hand, and your hand just melts there. You do get a little bit of jimping here at the top. Not necessarily a whole lot, but that extra divot at the top of the blade actually does let your thumb sink in, and it doesn't feel bad at all. So, you know, that does create a nice grip there. How about ice pick grip? Well, with ice pick grip, it actually almost feels better. That's kind of weird to say because, you know, there's not a whole lot of knives out there that feel better in the ice pick grip than they do in the regular grip. And considering that this one feels good in both grips and there's no hot spots, I'm rather impressed by that. A point of contention when we talk about ergonomics is the pocket clip, because it's really easy for pocket clips to become a hot spot. Yes, we all like them and we prefer them on our knives, but we prefer them to be well done. And just because something is 3D milled titanium doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be the most comfortable thing ever. In this case, however, it is pretty to look at. It matches the inserts and it's not an issue at all. You can't really feel the shape of the pocket clip when you're holding it, even when you grip tightly, and so that's ultimately a good thing. No complaints here on the ergonomics, especially since it has the added design language that could have gone wrong had it not been executed well, and for those reasons, I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8 out of 10 for ergonomics. I have held more comfortable knives, and if you want to see what those are, make sure you check out the list, the leaderboard, but I'm very confident, 8 out of 10 for ergonomics. And, you know, next up is my favorite category and what I think a lot of people's favorite category might be, and that's going to be the fidget factor. Does it make you want to play with it, whip it out in public? Don't do that. Or do that. I don't know what you like. However, we need to talk about a few things when we talk about the fidget factor. First and foremost is the action, and the action on this is really smooth. It's like buttered glass. And that might put weird images in your head, but, you know, coming up with adjectives on how to explain how good an action feels without being able to hand it to somebody, that's kind of what I came up with. It's very, very indicative of an Isham action. A lot of people, when they hear Elijah Isham's name, they think of things like, you know, the window and the knife blade and, you know, crazy details and design language on the handle scales, but it's more than that because his actions are rather good. I don't have anything negative to say about the action whatsoever. And as far as the D10 is concerned, it's very crispy and poppy, and it's there, and it's definitely a great amount. You don't hear any snap of the detent ball, and it's smooth. You also don't see anywhere in the blade that's noticeable where the detent ball wears in. And given that this one has been in my pocket for the last week, 2 weeks, I can tell you that there is no break-in period. The action is great right out of the box, and that's not always the case. You know, I have definitely had some other knives and have some other knives that the action doesn't feel great until, you know, you have a chance to break it in. There's no break-in period on here. The action is good. As far as the deployment methods are concerned, you get this flipper tab, and that's it. Now, you can flick it out if you add in some wrist action with that little window right there. And it's not the easiest thing, but it is actually rather fun to challenge yourself to do. And because they've knocked down the edges here on this window, it's not super uncomfortable either. You do need a little bit of wrist action, or at least I do, but I still find it to be a lot of fun. This is definitely a knife that I have to think about because while I love playing with it, I also don't necessarily want to scratch it or damage it just because it is officially a collector's item and I can't replace it. I have a lot of other knives I can use as users, like my Spyderco Para 3. So yeah, for those reasons, for the fidget factor, it gets a solid 8 out of 10. Moving on to the lock. The lock is a frame lock. It's a titanium frame lock that has a steel lock bar insert right there. As far as the lockup itself is concerned, if we dive in deep, you might be able to see that, but it is about 35, maybe 38% on the lockup. So very, very solid, not too late, definitely not too early. And there's zero lock stick. That's actually very smooth. And here's the thing. I like frame locks, but not all frame locks are going to be an automatic 8, automatic 9. No, it actually has to be executed well. Is there any wiggle side to side? Absolutely not. It's extremely well sandwiched between those scales. And to have a knife this solid that has no play whatsoever at all and also maintain that extremely smooth action, that's just crazy to me. The knife lockup on here is great. It's a titanium frame lock that does its job. What more can I say? Oh yeah, let's talk about how easy it is to disengage that lock bar. So this lock bar actually is scalloped out. And also rounded over. So it's not uncomfortable at all to go ahead and disengage. And that's definitely a good thing, considering that this is a fidget friendly knife and it is fun to play with. And so for all of those reasons, I'm going to go ahead and give this a 7 out of 10 for the lock. Now, we are moving on to the 5th and final category, which is fit and finish. Let's talk about that. Fit and finish is how well realized is the design and how well executed was it? Is there any edges that are sharp that shouldn't be sharp? Did it come together? Does it feel like a complete product? And you know, the answer to all of those questions, except for the extra sharp edges, is yeah, it's fully realized. This is Elijah Isham's, sadly, his last design that he's worked on that we know of. You can definitely see his influence in the handle skills. You can see it with these inlays. You can see it with the extra angles. You know, it's contoured with geometry. I absolutely love the fact that we have a backspacer here, and the milled titanium pocket clip is almost a given for this designer. You also see it in the window on the blade itself. I absolutely love how that lines up perfectly with the handle scales. It feels seamless, like it was supposed to be there because it was. As far as the blade is concerned, you get this nice hollow ground blade with a Japanese tanto flat grind for the tip, a nice polished flat here, and then of course a swedge at the top for cutting relief. Now, I haven't done this yet, but it's about time. We're going to go ahead and do a cut test. Season's greeting from Disney. Let's see how well this guy cuts. All right, let's see. Can we push cut? Yes. Ultimately, from the factory, this came out beautifully. This is one of those knives that when you actually do get it in the mail, it's something that you really, really want to hang on to and hold on to and carry all day, but it's also something that you do want to keep in good condition. You want to keep looking nice. And, you know, that's goes beyond saying that it's just a collector's piece. It has this certain air about it, which is just wonderful. I have a lot of other knives, but this is my only Japanese style tanto, and they did a phenomenal job. And when we look at the blade centering, we'll see that that is actually spot on. There is no issue there whatsoever. Adding little flares like the captive single-sided pivot is also nice, so there's no complaints from me. So, for those reasons, fit and finish is a very impressive and solid 9 out of 10. So what do we got? Materials was a 9. Ergonomics was an 8. Fidget factor was an 8. The lock was a 7. And fit and finish was a 9, which gives us a total overall of 41, tying the Grant Gripper as the highest score on my list. Guys, I love this knife. I can't recommend it even more than I already do, and I understand that there's going to be some people out there that say, you know what, it's just not for me. I have a feeling those are people that use their knives every day, and maybe they want something that's a bit more practical. This knife isn't about practicality. This knife is about feeling. It's about a man's dream to make the perfect knife. And this was going to be the culmination of Elijah Isham's design work. Something that he felt would last for a very long time and keep you happy and satisfied for a long time. You know, and it shows in everything from the handle scales to the grind on the blade. There is heavy detail work in this knife, but it's subtle. It's subtle and well done. What do you think? Did I score it too high? Did I score it too low? I want to know your thoughts. Put them in the comments section down below. My friends, that's all I got for you. If you liked the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, boo-hoo, there's a button for you too. And if you want to see more content just like it, make sure you hit subscribe. I'm Rollshambo, and I'll see you on the flip side.